Right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hendrik Makaneta, and of course, I'm just going to carry on now with today's lesson for grade 7 maths. And of course, at the end of the lesson, if you still have questions that have not been answered, please feel free to also follow me on the Twitter page there at Hendrik Makane 3. Alternatively, at the end of this lesson, I'll also provide you with more information. Now, by the end of this lesson, I want you to use the appropriate formula once again to calculate the perimeter and area, not only of triangles, but also of other polygons. Just as we started with this topic, and of course, we have been able to see up to so far that one can construct the height of a triangle given a triangle that you have. And of course, the height can be you can be able to get your height, like I said, in different forms. As you can see, the first one there, we have triangle JKL as well as triangle JKL again, the three of them. And of course, JM now becomes the height in the first triangle, and KM is the height for the second triangle. And of course, the last one, you have ML as the height, or if you want, you can name it LM. And of course, this actually means that you are now at a point where you can be able to use or to make use of the different sides to calculate the area of the triangle. So the sketches are shown there. And of course, each sketch is different depending on the height. In the same note, I'm going to take you now to the next slide where we also looked at the three sides. We agreed yesterday that if you want to calculate the perimeter of a triangle, once again, you use the same principle of adding all the three sides together in order to calculate the perimeter there. And as you can see in this triangle that we have there, we have at example 2 there, where the definition of the perimeter is given as the distance around the edge of the shape. And of course, the solution there, we can see that perimeter of a triangle is the sum of all sides, side 1 plus side 2 plus side 3. And this, of course, will give us the perimeter of the triangle. And yesterday, I also gave you some work there where I wanted you to find the base of the triangle when you are given the area. And remember that we have defined the area of the triangle as half a base times height. That is what we said yesterday. Not just the height, but the perpendicular height. So the area of any triangle is half of the base multiplied by the perpendicular height. And of course, if you look at this triangle that is given here, the area is 88 square meters. And you are also given the perpendicular height, which is now 8 meters. And of course, you have to now find the base. And how will you find the base? You will find the base by using the formula for the calculation of the area, and you can simply substitute the given values. Like in this case, you are given two values there. The first value is 88 square meters. The second value is 8 meters. And the 88 represents the area, whereas the 8 represents the perpendicular height, meaning that the height where it meets with the base, they form 90 degrees. And how are you going to find the base? We should know at this point that the area of a triangle is given by the formula, as you can see on the board. That is half of the base multiplied by the height. And of course, if you multiply out or if you substitute, you can see that the area there is 88, whereas the height is h, which is 8. And of course, you can just substitute, as you can see in the first step, the second step rather. And once you are at this point now, you can simply divide both sides by 8. And if you divide 88 by 8, you will get 11. In other words, 11 multiplied by 8 will give you 88. So if you divide 88 by 8, you get 11. And of course, to get rid of the half on the right-hand side, you'll need to multiply both sides by 2. And of course, if you multiply 11 by 2, you will get 22. This therefore means that your base will be equal to 22 centimeters. So your base in this case will be 22 centimeters. And of course, this brings us to the next conclusion, where we are looking at the different perimeter or area of any shape. The 2D shapes in this case, the first one is the rectangle, the square, as well as the triangle. And you can see there in the table that I've put for you, I have given you in the first column, that is the name of the 2D shape. So you've got 3 2D shapes there, 3 of them, the rectangle, the square, and the triangle. And of course, the perimeter or the area is calculated as above there, as given in the column, the second column, and the formulae for different for the perimeter and the area are also given. As you can see, the perimeter of the rectangle there, that's how we calculate it. You have 2L plus 2B. In other words, 2 times the length and 2 times the breadth. So you add all the sides together to get the perimeter. And of course, the area of the rectangle, we have already discussed it. We said that the area of the rectangle is length times breadth. So L times B, that will be your area. And moving on from the rectangle to the square, you can also see that the square or the perimeter of the square has got a formula of its own, and that is P is equal to 4S. And this is demonstrated in this particular activity here. P is equal to 4S. And what does the S stand for? It stands for the sides. So you've got 4 sides of the square. Then that will give you the perimeter. As we have always said, that the perimeter is defined as the distance around the edge of the shape. So you've got 4 sides in a square. That is why the perimeter is 4S, or 4 sides. You add them together, or you simply multiply each side by 4. So because in any case, the sides of the square are equal, all sides are equal. So it makes sense that you can simply multiply just one side by 4. If you have one side, then you've got the side, all other sides, because the 4 sides must be equal in relation to the square. The difference with the triangle, you can see that there is a difference with the triangle. In the triangle, you can't just say 3s. Or before we go to the triangle, let's finish the area of a square. Then you can see that even the area of a square is very simple. You just multiply a side by itself. In this case, you will have s squared, which means you are multiplying the length by itself or the side by itself. Then this gives you the area of a square. And coming back to the triangle, you can see that the perimeter of the triangle differs from that of the square as well as that of the rectangle, because the sides will not always be identical. For instance, we conclude that the perimeter of the triangle is equal to the sum of all the sides, and unlike the perimeter of the square where you just multiply by 4. So in this case, you cannot multiply by 3. You can't say that the triangle has 3 sides and therefore you say the area is 3s or 3 sides. You can't do that. Why? Because we are working here with different triangles. If you were working with an equilateral triangle, yes, you could say the perimeter there is 3s. So meaning that you multiply one side by 3 because they will be equal in an equilateral triangle. But you can have different other triangles, such as the isosceles triangle, the right-angled triangle, and a scalene, for example. So those 3 sides will not apply. You just say the sum of all sides. So you add all the 3 sides together, but you don't multiply a side by 3, unlike your square. That is the perimeter of the triangle. And of course, together with the area, we have just spoken about this area now, because we have said that the area of the triangle is half a base times side. So half open bracket b multiplied by h, as we have done yesterday. And where did we derive the area of a triangle from? We derived it from the area of the rectangle. We remember yesterday we divided the rectangle by 2. So basically that is where we find the area of a triangle. But just to recap once again, we will look at this example 1 where you are expected to calculate the perimeter as well as the area of a square if the length is 1,5. So you are given the length of a square there. And of course, you are expected to calculate the area of the square where the length is 1,5. And please convert your answer to 1 decimal place. How are we going to proceed to calculate the perimeter as well as the area, not just the perimeter, the perimeter as well as the area of the square with the length of 1,5 centimeters. So remember, we have always said that in a square, all sides are equal. What does this mean? This means that in our example here, 1,5 is given as the length of the square. Therefore, all other sides will be the same. So you'll have 1,5, 1,5, 1,5, and 1,5. So the square has got 4 sides of 1,5 centimeters each. Now the first point is to calculate the perimeter. How do you calculate the perimeter in this case? Obviously, you will need to add all 4 sides together. Remember that we have said in the previous slide, we have said that the perimeter of a square is given by the formula 4 is equal to PS, 4S, sorry, P is equal to 4S. That is the formula to calculate the perimeter of a square. P is equal to 4s. So this is the exact formula in this case. P is equal to 4s. So basically, we will do that with example 1, where we will say P is equal to 4s. So in other words, it will be 4 multiplied by a side there. And the side that is given is 1,5 centimeters. So of course, if you multiply 1,5 by 4, you will get 6 centimeters. So in other words, your perimeter there will be equal to 6 centimeters. That is what you will get when you multiply out when you solve or calculate the perimeter of this square. Thereafter, what do? You can go to the perimeter. And of course, the perimeter, I'm talking about the area now. You can go to the area of a square with a length of 1,5 centimeters. And of course, 1,5 centimeters, remember that the formula to calculate the square was given as s squared. So A is equal to s squared. So that will be your formula to calculate the area. And of course, once you have calculated it, you will be able to see that it will give you 1,5 times 1,5. So you multiply 1,5 by itself, because we said that the area of a square is equal to s squared. That is s times s. You multiply a side by itself. And as you can see, with the solution that will follow, you'll be able to tell that, yes, the perimeter is equal to 4 sides, and that is 4 times 1,5 centimeters, which gives you 6 centimeters, as I've already indicated. And the area, A is equal to s squared. And what is the value of s there? The value of s is 1,5 centimeters. And this simply means you multiply 1,5 by itself. So you multiply 1,5 by 1,5. And of course, 1,5 times 1,5 will give you 2,25 square centimeters. So if you want to round it off there, remember that the instruction said round it off correct to 1 decimal. So now 2,25 has got 2 decimals. Now you need only 1 decimal. So if you round it off, 5 will influence the 2 there. And of course, the answer will be 2,3 square centimeters. So that is how you round off your answer there. Because remember, it's always important to check what the question says. Remember what the question was saying? Calculate the perimeter and the area of a square with a length of 1,5 centimeters. And of course, convert your answer to 1 decimal place. And of course, what we have done at this point was to convert our answer correct to 1 decimal place in order to get 2,3 square centimeters. Now we can proceed to the next one, which is example 2. We have now looked at the square once again, and we are proceeding now to upgrade to the rectangle using the table that I've given you today. Example 2 says, if the area of a rectangle is 26,52 square centimeters and its length is 7,8 centimeters, what is its breadth or width? So now you are given two things. You are given the area of the rectangle, which is 26,52. And you are also given the length of the rectangle, which is 7,8 centimeters. What are you required to find? You are required to calculate the breadth or the width. And of course, you can go back and use the formula. The formula does not change. As we have said, when you work with a rectangle, we have always said that the area of a rectangle is given by the formula L multiplied by B. That is your formula there. L times B, that will be the formula to calculate the area in a rectangle. Now, we are going to use this formula to find the missing variables. And in this case, the missing variable will be the breadth, because we are given the area, we are also given the length. And of course, this means that the length is 7,8 and the area is 6,52. Now let's proceed. Let us proceed. How do we calculate the breadth in this particular case? Obviously, I've shown you the formula to calculate the rectangle, the area of the rectangle. You are going to use the same formula. And what is the formula by now? The formula means it says A, which stands for the area of the rectangle. A is equal to length times breadth, or length multiplied by the breadth. So the symbol there for length will be L for lucky, and the symbol for breadth will be B for bread. Now you use that particular expression to demonstrate that you understand the formula to calculate the area. If you don't know the formula, then it's going to be very difficult for you to answer any question related to the rectangle. What is important in this case is that you need to understand the formula to calculate the rectangle, which is A is equal to L times B. And let us proceed. Of course, in the next slide, you should be able to see that L times B is equal to A. That will be the formula to calculate the area of the rectangle. So if you don't want to start with A, you can start with L times B. I know that you are probably used to the fact that A is equal to L times B. So as you can see in the slide here, this time around, we started with L times B is equal to A. So basically, this is the same thing. You can put A in the right-hand side and put the L times B in the left-hand side. In other words, you can swap the left-hand side with the right-hand side. It will not change the meaning of your equation. And this, of course, shows that since L is 7,8 centimeters, then you can substitute there the value of L, which is 7,8 centimeters. And of course, you multiply this by B. And this is equated to 26,52 square centimeters. And what do you do at this point? You can simply divide. You can divide both sides by 7,8 in order to proceed to calculate the breadth, which is B. And of course, if you divide 26,52 by 7,8, you will get 3,4 centimeters, as you can see there on the screen. So basically, this is the solution to the question that was posed earlier. B is equal to 3,4 centimeters. So this is the solution to the question that was posed earlier on, where we were given the area of a rectangle together with the length of the rectangle. And all that we needed to find was the breadth, meaning that the other side. So you've got the length of the rectangle, so you need to find the other side, which is the breadth, given the area of this particular rectangle. And of course, we have just done that. We have now found that the breadth will be 3,4 centimeters. By the way, you can also solve this by inspection, because you need to ask yourself a question. 7,8 must be multiplied by what in order to get 26,52? So this is a critical question. You need to ask, what you must multiply 7,8 with in order to get 26,52? How does this question arise? It arises from the fact that we know that the area of a rectangle is equal to length multiplied by breadth. This means that if you are given the area together with the length, then you need to find out what must the length be multiplied with in order to get the area. And in this case, the length will have to be multiplied by 3,4. And of course, if you want to test your answer, to check if your answer is correct, you can simply multiply L by B. In other words, you can multiply 7,8 centimeters multiplied by 3,4 centimeters in order to check whether you will get the same answer as the area that we have there. So I can assure you now, if you multiply 7,8 by 3,4, you will definitely get 26,52. That is the answer that you will get when you multiply the two. So you will definitely get the answer, which is 26,52, which shows you that the answer that you got, which is B, that is the correct answer. So to know whether the answer is correct or not, then you can check. You can go back to the initial equation here and take the answer that you got, which is B. And where there is B, you put 3,4. Where there is L, you put 7,8. Then you multiply the two. 7,8 multiplied by 3,4. Definitely, it will give you 26,52. So this tells us that our answer is correct, because when you check, it gives you the original area which was given in the beginning when you multiply your length times and the breadth. I hope that it makes sense. And this is another example in relation to the rectangle. So at this point, we have done two examples. The first one was the square, where we were able to calculate the area together with the perimeter of that square. And this time around, we are given the area of the rectangle, and we had to find the other side, which is B, the breadth. And we have done that. Now we need to look at the next example, which is the third one. And this is a practical example involving word sums. Now, Margie here plants a vegetable patch measuring 12 meters by 8 meters, as shown below. Now you can see that we've got a vegetable patch, which is measured by 12 meters by 8 meters, and it is shown on the diagram. Now there are 3 questions that I want us to answer here. The first question says, what is the area of the vegetable patch? That is the first question. And the second one, she plants carrots on half of the patch and tomatoes and potatoes on a quarter of the patch each. Calculate the area covered by each type of vegetable. So this is an interesting question. Now, what does Margie do to the patch? The vegetable patch, she now plants carrots in half. Half of the patch and, a quarter tomatoes, another quarter potatoes. So, in other words, this patch is divided into 3 sides which are not equal. The first one is half of the whole terrain there. And then you also have the quarter. So the other half is divided into 2. And she plants tomatoes and potatoes in the quarter, the second half, quarter each. Now C says, so now before you go to C, you need to calculate now the area which is covered by each type of the vegetable. And of course, the last one says, how much will she pay to put fencing around the patch? If the fencing costs 38 rands per meter. So this is a very interesting practical example as opposed to the previous examples. Now this one is more practical. So the first things first, we need to find out what is the area of the vegetable patch, and it should be easier. You should know by now that if you want to calculate the area, you will have to multiply the length by the breadth. And what is the length of this vegetable patch, or the length of this terrain? The length is 12 meters, as you can see. That's the longest side. And the breadth, which is the shortest side, will be 8 meters as reflected. And by the way, we can see that this is the rectangle. How do we know it's a rectangle? Because of the 90 degrees that we can see there in the corner here. This patch is structured in such a way that it is on its own a rectangle where the length is 12 meters and the breadth is 8 meters. So obviously, if you want to calculate the area, you will have to multiply 12 by 8 in order to get your area. You will have to multiply 12 by 8 in order to get the area. And thereafter, what you do in B, you plant carrots on half of the patch and tomatoes and potatoes on a quarter of each remaining patch. And thereafter, you calculate the area that is covered by each type of the patch. So obviously, if you are going to divide this into 2, if you want to check the half of the 12, it means you can simply make the half of 12 there if you want to divide it. So it will be half of 12, and then it will give you a different portion there. So you'll have half of 12 and half of 8 there. And of course, the last one, you will need to now find out if you want to put the fence. So before we answer B, let's go to C. The perimeter. C means you will now calculate the perimeter of the patch. Remember that the perimeter is the distance around the edge of the shape. So this means you will have to have the perimeter first. Calculate the perimeter, thereafter you substitute 38 rands per meter, and that will give you the cost of the fence or the fencing as follows. You can see that the first one, as I have already indicated, you have to calculate the area as follows: length multiplied by breadth. And of course, if you multiply out the two, the length is 12 meters and the breadth is 8. And thereafter, they give you 96 square meters. So therefore, the area of this patch will be 96 square meters. I'm going to repeat. The area of this patch is 96 square meters because you multiplied 12 by 8 to get 96. So the area, that is the terrain, the area of this terrain or this patch, it's 12 multiplied by 8, which is 96. Now, to get the area of the carrots, since it will be half, then of course you can just multiply 96 by half, or you divide 96 by 2. So when you divide 96 by 2, you get 48 square meters. So the area for the terrain of carrots will be 48 square meters. So that will be half of the entire terrain. And of course, the tomatoes and potatoes. Remember that the tomatoes and potatoes will be a quarter. So you get a quarter of the 48 there, and of course that will be 12 square meters. So in other words, tomatoes and potatoes, each one of those will be 12 square meters. In fact, that will be half of it will be quarter of 48, as it is indicated. So quarter of 48 is 12 square meters. So in other words, each of those there will be 12 square meters. And of course, if you were to add them together there, they will definitely give you 96. Now, we are going to the last one, which is the P, also known as the perimeter. We have said that the perimeter is the distance around the edge of the shape. And as you know, P is equal to 2, open bracket, L plus B. This is the formula that we have. If you remember in the beginning, I've shown you this formula to calculate the perimeter of a rectangle. So basically, this will be the formula, and of course you substitute. Your length is 12 and your breadth is 8. So obviously 12 plus 8 gives you 20, and that is why you've got 20 there. It comes from 12 plus 8 gives you 20. And of course, if you multiply 20 by 2, you get 40 meters. So in other words, your fencing or your perimeter will be 40 meters. But remember that in the beginning, we were told that, you know, it costs 38 rands per meter. The fencing costs 38 rands per meter, so they sell it per meter. which is 38 rands per meter. So now you need 40 meters. Then you'll have to multiply 40 meters multiplied by 38. And the answer that you get there will be 1,520. That is the answer that you get. So it should be clear at this point that we are able to ensure that we calculate our area together with the perimeter and the other half an area using the formula. So without the formula, it will not be easy to calculate this perimeter together with the area. Very important to know your formula. I think that we can proceed now to the next example here, which is the last one. I'm going to talk about the last one here, which is example 4. Calculate the perimeter and the area of the triangle below. So we have looked at the square now. We have also looked at the rectangle. Now we are coming back to the triangle. Calculate the perimeter and the area of the triangle below. We are given a triangle there, triangle JKL, and of course you can see the sides. But at the same time, you should be able to see a perpendicular line there that moves from the vertex J right up to the line KL, and it forms 90 degrees, as you can see on the board here. This is 90 degrees. And it is formed by the line that moves from the vertex J to the line KL. Now, what is the question? Calculate the perimeter and the area of the triangle below. How are we going to calculate the area of this triangle and the perimeter? Obviously, the perimeter, as I said, you add all the sides, as we've said in the beginning. Once you have added all the sides together, then you'll have the perimeter. So we have 3 sides of the triangle. I know there's the 4th one now, which is the perpendicular line. You don't add that. You only add JK plus KL plus LJ. Once you add those, you should be able to get the perimeter. They should be able to give you the perimeter of the triangle. Because remember, always remember that the perimeter is the distance around the edge of the shape. So you'll be moving around the shape. So that will be from, if you are moving from J then to K, from K to L, from L back to J. That is the distance around the edge. And of course, that will be your perimeter. What about the area? The area, as I've already indicated, will be half a base multiplied by the height. So the area of this triangle is half a base times height. So it's half open bracket B times H. And this is the area that we have already derived yesterday from the rectangle. And how do we proceed going forth? You should be able to see that once you have this area, once you have got the perimeter, or once you've got the line which moves from the top to the bottom, forming a 90 degrees, then you can be able to find now the area, because that line is a perpendicular line. You can see that its length is 5 meters. That's how you will find the area. In other words, the area of this triangle will be half the base times height, and the base in this case will be 8,6 meters, and the height is 5 meters, as reflected in the next solution there. You can see that we have added the sides, the 3 sides for the perimeter, 5,9 meters plus 8,6 meters plus 9,5 meters. And this gives you